Namaskar friends, welcome to the channel JIV and CIV Made Simple. In this particular video, we are going to cover our AML KYC memory based question for the examination which was held on 20th February, confirmed by the aspirant who appeared in the examination. The paper was conceptual one. Now they have shifted their approach to asking more and more case study type question. So keeping that in the mind, I have framed some good level question that will help you strengthen your concept, and surely this will help you in the upcoming examination. If you have not seen our previous memory based question videos, you can check out the link in the description section. I have added a complete playlist of the AML KYC. So let's get started with our very first question. So it is all about Parda Nasin woman. So what the question is, a Parda Nasi woman, which is a woman living in complete seclusion, she comes to a bank. Now why she come to a bank? To open a high value fixed deposit and to give power of attorney in favor of her nephew. Now because she live in seclusion, law give her extra protection. So basically option they have given that which of the following action best aligning with the duty of care and the KYC guideline required to ensure that transaction is legally immune to future challenge of undue influence. Means what kind of precaution or care bank have to take care while dealing with such customer. Option number A, that accept the thumbprint on the account opening form as long as it is attested by the nephew who accompanied her. Option number B, request her to lift her wheel in a general lobby to match her face with her Aadhaar or identity document to satisfy immediately. Option C, conduct the identification in a private area through a female bank official and ensure that the document implications are explained. Option number D, refuse the transaction entirely as Parda Nasi women are legally classified as a person under disability. Very good question it is. So basically because she live in seclusion, law give her extra protection. So the bank must ensure that. So we are talking to the context of Parda Nasi woman. Let me write it down. Right. So bank must ensure that she is acting freely. First of all. Second thing, bank must ensure that she understand. That means woman understand what she is signed. Third case is there is no pressure or undue influence. There should be no pressure or there should be no undue influence. Now the question asks, what should the bank do to follow the duty of care and KYC so that transaction is safe and from future legal challenge. So the first point is a special legal protection, right? So under Indian law, a Parda Nasi woman can enter into contracts. Yes, and under the Indian legal law, she can enter into contract first of all. But the burden of the proof is on the bank. Please remember, the burden of proof is on bank to show that she signed with the free mind. First of all. Second case, she understand the document. This is on the bank. She understand the document and there was no undue influence. This bank has to prove there was no undue influence. Fine. So now let's see the option. And second thing is privacy and dignity. Let's talk about the privacy and dignity also, this aspect also. So basically asking her to lift her wheel in general lobby, it violate her privacy. It violate her privacy and cultural practice. So proper SOP say verification should be done privately and sensitively, not actively. Now what about female official? Yes. So let's look at the option that they have provided. If we see option number A, so special legal protection. So yes, I told you that special legal protection is given to her. So conducting identification in a private area. Yes, correct. So the female bank official, see, when a female bank official, she is a safer compliance, she reduces discomfort and risk of allegation. Court expect bank to take extra care, not minimum care. So option C shows the maximum care possible, that C's identification is done in private area through the female bank official. Ensure document implication are explained to her in language, ideally in the presence of independent witness. Now what is the independent witness? This is a kind of legal shield, right? So nephew is a beneficiary, so he cannot be trusted as a witness. So please understand what is the condition for independent witness. The key word is, independent witness, which means so an independent witness prove that no pressure. First point. Second is no coercion. And the third is, voluntary execution. Voluntary execution. Fine. So if you look at the option, only option C satisfy all these things, right? What option is say? Option is say thumbprint. Option is say, thumbprint attested by nephew. See, actually it is wrong, because nephew is an interested party. First of all, nephew is an interested party, right? So high risk of undue influence allegation. So legally it is weak. What about B? Lived valley in the lobby? No. Correct. Incorrect. So this violate her privacy against the cultural sensitivity, right? And not required under KYC norms. What about option D? Refuse transaction? No. Actually, completely wrong concept. Partnership women are not legally disabled. They have full right to contract. Law only give them extra protection, not restriction. So what is the correct answer? Option number C is the correct answer. Please remember that, Pardarshini woman plus bank transaction, right? High duty of care. Please remember it. This is the keyword to remember. High duty of care. So bank must prove the free consent, full understanding, no undue influence. So you can remember it like a rule. Let me give you a trick to remember it. You can remember it PFI rule. What is the meaning of PFI? P means private verification. F means, female bank official. And I means, basically independent witness. So these are the utmost requirement to the context of, Pardarshini woman, independent witness. So what we learned from there, if all the three are present, safe and legally strong transaction. PFI, private verification, female bank official, independent witness. So, Pardarshini woman can sign contract, bank bear the burden of proof, privacy, explanation, witness, protection, ensured protection, and sensitivity is a part of the KYC and duty care. I hope till now everything is crystal clear, and exactly same question was asked in the examination. So since you know the concept, you can easily answer any question which will be asked in the upcoming examination. If you are looking for one-stop solution for your AML KYC preparation, you can check out our course which is available on the app JIB and CIB Made Simple. In this, I have added AML and KYC content, mock tests and quizzes. So in the case of AML and KYC content, you get unit-wise theory, unit-wise MCQ, previous year question, capsule revision content. In the case of unit-wise theory folder, it has been divided into two parts, part A and part B, as per the reference book prescribed by IABF. Similarly, in the case of part B, in the case of unit-wise MCQs, you get MCQs for each and every unit. Like you can see, they have been arranged unit-wise. All these PDFs are downloadable. You can download them instantly. In addition to that, we provide you previous year question, which consists of memory-based question starting from February 2025. In addition to that, we also provide you mock test for practice, right? So all these things you can get a very nominal price, right? So check out the link in the description section, or you can WhatsApp me on the number shown on the screen to get more details. They have mentioned Eden Heritage Trust is opening a corporate investment. So basically the trust name is, Eden Heritage Trust, and they want to open a corporate investment account. See the keyword I am highlighting here. Let me highlight it. Eden Heritage Trust, corporate investment account, right? The trust deed mentioned 4 people. Who are the 4 people? Mr. A, who is the author or who is the settler. We can also call them settler, right? Then Mr. B, who is the trustee, right? Sorry, Mrs. B is trustee. Master C, who is the beneficiary, 12% income share, as you can see, and Mr. D, who is a protector with a veto power. Fine. So these are the trust these are the 4 people who are mentioned in the trust deed. Now the question is, as basically which individual satisfy the criteria for a beneficial owner, right? So actually the question pertains to beneficial owner. You should know the criteria for beneficial owner, and you have to select which one satisfy the beneficial owner. So they have mentioned about Mr. A, who settled the trust with one-time corporate corpus of 10 lakh. Mr. B, Mrs. B, a professional lawyer managing the trust asset. Master C, a minor with a fixed 12% entitlement. Mr. D, a non-beneficiary who hold the veto power to dismiss trustee. Right. So now let's first of all clarify the concept. So option they have given only Master A, only Mr. A and Mrs. B, A, B and D, all the four individual. Very good question. Let's first of all clarify the concept. So, when it comes to trust, please understand. When it comes to trust, beneficial ownership is not about money. Beneficial ownership is not about money. Rather, it is also about, control and, authority. Control and authority. So there are three key rules. So how many rules are there? There are 3 rules to identify whether beneficial owner. So the first rule is called the role rule. So what does it say? What does this rule say? Let's have a look. So this rule says that, if you look at the Mr. A, he created the trust. Second, he put the initial money. So automatically he become the BO, beneficial owner. Now, what about the trustee? Let's have a look at the trustee. Who is the trustee? Mrs. B. Mrs. B is the trustee, as you can see. Right. So if you look at this particular case, they have mentioned, yes, Mrs. B is the trustee. So she manages and control the true asset. So what are her role? Let's have a look. So she manage and control the asset. So please remember, control is more important than profit. Fine. So automatically she become BO. So therefore Mr. A and Mrs. B must be KYC compliant. Now there is another rule. Please remember, there is another rule for BO. That's called, let me write it down using different color. Okay. So that's called, 15% rule for beneficiary. So see, suppose there is a beneficiary. Right. So beneficiary become BO, that is beneficial owner, only if he or she has more than 15% interest. Now look at the case of Master C. If you look at the Master C, he has in income entitlement of only 12%. 12% income entitlement. Fine. So below that 15% threshold. So hence Master C is not a beneficial owner. What about D? So, and one more rule is that's called, control rule. I told you, control rule is more important than money. So what does control rule say? It says that even if someone get no money, suppose someone get no money, or but he has a power, but someone get no money, but he has the power to control decision. He has the power to control decision. So he is a BO, right? Now let's look at the Mr. D, who is a protector. So he can dismiss trustee, right? He can change investment strategy. He has the veto power. This means he has the ultimate effective control. Ultimate effective control lies with protector. So therefore Mr. D must be treated like a beneficial owner, right? Because he has the veto power, he has the control. So this is a BO. So if you look at the option number A, only Master C, this is incorrect. Why? Because income alone is not enough, and also if you look at the Master C, income is just 12%, which is below the threshold. If you look at the option B, A and B, actually they ignore the control test. Control test is also very important. Protector with veto power cannot be ignored, so it's wrong. C says that A, B and D, yes, correct. D is all 4 wrong. Beneficiary below 15% are included. So remember, what we learned from this discussion is that if you talk about the trust to the context of BO to the context of trust, please remember, role is also important, plus percentage interest is also important, plus control is also important. So this you can remember using a simple rule. That's called, STC rule. So S means, settler. He is a beneficiary, or we can also call it author. He is a beneficiary. T means trustee. Trustee is a beneficial owner. C means controller. Controller means protector or veto holder. He is also beneficial owner. So STC, please remember, beneficiary only if more than 15%. So settlor and trustee are always BO. Beneficiary is BO if they hold more than 15% share, and control without money is still BO. Minor status does not matter here. So trust BO is all about power, not just profit. I hope everything is crystal clear. Option C is the correct answer. Now have a look at the next question. So author, settlor mandatory, trustee mandatory, beneficiary only if interest is more than 15%. Right, I hope it is clear. Now question number 3 of today's session. This is regarding the PMLA. Under the PMLA, that is the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. So the money laundered is linked to a schedule offense in a part A, right, of the schedule. Especially a narcotic related offense that they have given. So the question asks, what is the maximum punishment, that is a rigorous imprisonment, that the court can award under the section 4 of the PMLA? Option A, up to 3 years and mandatory fine. Option B, not less than 3 years but extending up to 7 years along with a liability for a fine. Option C, not less than 3 years but extending up to 10 years if the money laundering is related to a specific drug related offense. Option D, exactly 7 years with no provision for a fine if the amount exceeds 1 crore. So very good question it is. Let me explain step by step. So first of all, to answer this question, we must understand the section 4, right? We must understand the section 4 of the PMLA. So what does this section say? See, basically this section talks about, punishment for money laundering, right? It talks about the punishment for money laundering, right? Not the original crime. So what are the general rules under section number 4? It says that, for most scheduled offense, it says for most scheduled offense, punishment is minimum 3 years. 3 year minimum punishment, right? And maximum punishment is 7 years. 7 year maximum. And fine can also be imposed, right? This is the standard punishment range. 3 year minimum, 7 year maximum with fine. A standard range, right? Now, special exemptions for drug related crime. Please note, for drug related crime, there are special exemptions. So if the money laundering is connected to offense under NDPS Act. You know what is NDPS Act? Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substance Act 1985. So what I mean to say, that if this money laundering is connected to the offense under NDPS Act, the law become quite strict. In that case, law become strict. In such case, what happen? Maximum punishment remain 3 years. Sorry, minimum punishment, not maximum. Minimum is 3 years, which is the same like we have seen earlier, right? 3 years was there also, but maximum punishment, it increases. Earlier it was 7 years, now it become 10 years. So this special tax provision is clearly mentioned under the section number 4. It clearly mentioned in the section number 4 of the PMLA, right? So let's apply this to the question. So friends, basically the offense is narcotic related. Clearly they have mentioned narcotic related offense, and it is listed in the part A of the schedule. Also they have mentioned it, that this is listed in the part A of the schedule. So therefore a special NDPS provision will apply. Hence the court can award up to 10 years of rigorous imprisonment. If you look at the option number A, it says about 3 years and a mandatory fine. So this is incorrect. 3 years is a minimum, not a maximum. Question is asking you maximum term. Option number B, maximum 7 years. See, this is also wrong. It applies only to non-NDPS offense, right? So remember, maximum 7 year apply to non-NDPS offense. What about option C? Not less than 3 years but extending up to 10 years. Yes, correct. C is correct. Is that right? Please let me write it down. Section number 4 of the PMLA, right? This is about the punishment. Fine, for ML. Punishment for ML. So remember, if it is normal case, then punishment can range from 3 to 7 years. And if it is, NDPS linked case, it can be 3 to 10 years. Right. So one memory trick I can tell you to remember it like this. Just remember, drugs, double digit. Fine. So if laundering involves drug, maximum punishment can go to 10 years. I hope it is clear. Now have a look at the question number 4 of today's session. Question number 4 is on your screen. As you can see, they have mentioned that when a bank or business correspondent perform a Aadhaar eKYC, right, transaction with the customer explicit consent. Which of the following combination of data is electronically transferred by UIDAI to the bank system? Option is name, mobile number, father name, GPS location, name, age, date of birth, gender and photograph, name, photograph, address, registered bank account number, name, date of birth, gender, photograph and address. See, to solve this question, you must clearly understand the difference between the Aadhaar authentication and Aadhaar eKYC, right? So basically, once you understand the difference, you can easily answer this question. So let me explain. What is the difference between these two terms? On one side we have, Aadhaar authentication, right? And other side we have, Aadhaar eKYC. So let's start with eKYC. What's the meaning of eKYC? See, it is a paperless KYC process. UIDAI send verified demographic data electronically. So under eKYC, UIDAI, they send demographic data. They send demographic data electronically, and this happen only with the customer consent. Yes, customer consent is needed for this Aadhaar eKYC. So bank rely on this data for two things. Bank rely on this data for proof of identity, and also bank rely on this data for proof of address. Fine. Now what does UIDAI actually say? So in a full Aadhaar eKYC, please remember, in a full Aadhaar eKYC, right, UIDAI share 5 demographic detail. The first one is name, second thing is date of birth or age, third is gender, fourth is photo, and lastly we have the address. These are the 5 things that are shared by the Aadhaar UIDAI, right? So these 5 together fully satisfy the RBI KYC norms. Fine. Now let's look at the option. Option number A is given GPS location. No, that's wrong. UIDAI does not track or share live location. Aadhaar is an identity database, not a surveillance system. What about B? So it's talking about the missing address. Yes. So incomplete. Address is mandatory. For proof of address, address should be given. And address has not been written here. Bank cannot open account without POA. What about C? Bank account number. C. Bank account number completely incorrect. UIDAI never store or share bank detail. The correct answer is D. Name, date of birth, gender, photograph and address. Right. So NDGPA. Then if all these 5s are present, that's called full eKYC. So remember, I hope till Aadhaar authentication, when I say it is just yes or no, right? And Aadhaar eKYC is the demographic data is shared. In case of Aadhaar authentication, right? So like a bank or business correspondent, they perform this Aadhaar eKYC after taking the customer consent, right? They take the customer consent, they perform this Aadhaar eKYC. So they UIDAI electronically send these kind of data to the bank system. Once they perform Aadhaar eKYC, UIDAI send the name, date of birth, gender, photograph and address to the bank system, right? So bank rely on this data for two things, for POI and for POA, right? For these two things, bank rely on this data. So I hope till now everything is clear. So what we learn, Aadhaar authentication is just yes or no, while Aadhaar eKYC is the complete demographic detail is shared, GPS location is never shared, bank account number are never shared, address is essential for bank eKYC. Now have a look at the next question. Yes, this is a very good question regarding the layering. So what this question is all about, a criminal syndicate has earned a lot of illegal money, right? A criminal syndicate has earned a lot of amount of black money. To avoid reporting rule like CTR, so the bank break the cash into a small amount and use many people who are called smurf, deposit money into 100 of bank account, right? So the question is, in the 3-stage model of money laundering, which stage does it actively primarily represent? Layering, placement, integration, structuring. So to answer this question, you must remember that money laundering always happen in a fixed order. So there is a fixed order, right, in which money laundering happen. So what is the fixed order? See, there are 3 stages. How many stages? 3 stages are there. Fine. So the first stage is called the placement. Let me explain once more. We have explained it several times in the previous lecture. So placement, what happened here, this is the first and most risky stage for criminal. So if I ask you which one is the most risky, so placement is the most risky for the criminal. What happened here, physical illegal cash is introduced into the banking system. So illegal cash is introduced where? In the banking system, right? And what are the common method? So basically, criminal try to avoid detection. Common method is use of smurf, right? Cash deposit in a small amount. In a small amount you deposit the cash, or structuring the deposit. So in this question, cash from street came deposited into many bank account, done to avoid CTR. So this is the placement, right? Now what about smurfing? So smurfing, see, one more thing you must note it down, that smurfing means breaking big cash into a small deposit. So you have big cash and you are breaking into a small deposit. That's called smurfing. Purpose is to place cash into bank quietly, even though it look very complex, but it still belongs to the placement. So what is the correct answer? The correct stage is the placement stage, right? What happened? What about layering? So layering happened after the money is already inside the bank. So now the money has been placed, right? Money has been placed inside bank. So layering means multiple transfer occur. Okay. So also it includes foreign remittance. Fine. And sometimes investment is done to confuse the trial. Not applicable here. What about integration? So when I say integration, it just mean final stage, money look fully clean. Money look fully clean and it appeared like a business income, property sale, right? Or you can also call it luxury purchase. Fine. So that's called integration, which means money looks like fully clean, it appears like a business income, property sale. So not the case here. What about structuring? Structuring is the main trap. So structuring is a technique used during placement stage. Technique is not a stage, option D is incorrect. So remember, if you look at the 3 stages of money laundering, the first is the placement. After placement, layering is done. And after layering, integration happen. Right. So remember, this cash deposit is always the placement. Right. So CLI, you can remember it using the trick. What is the trick? CLI. Cash crime, land into bank, and I for initial stage. If cash is entering bank for the first time, it's called placement. Right. Please remember it, very, very important. So remember that placement means introducing illegal cash into the bank. Layering means hiding trial after placement. Integration means enjoying the clean money. Now friends, the question is regarding the Volkswagen group. So basically the question is, which of the following is not a member of the Volkswagen group? HSBC, Goldman Sachs, SBI, JP Morgan Chase. So the Volkswagen group is a non-governmental organization. Please have a look. So remember, this is a non-government association of the global bank that developed the AML KYC standard that is followed worldwide. So you should know what the Volkswagen group really is. So it is a private association and members are large international bank. Purpose is to create the best practice standard. What is the purpose? Purpose is to create the best practice standard for what? AML, KYC, correspondent banking, sanction, etc. It is not a government body. Membership is limited and exclusive. So only selected global private giant can be member. Right. Total member is 12 only. Right. Membership is by invitation, not by size or country importance. So yes, HSBC is a member of this. This is the global private bank. Goldman Sachs is a global investment bank. JP Morgan and Chase, yes, but SBI is not. It is globally significant, but not a Volkswagen member. So banks centered are Bank of America, Barclays, Citigroup, Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank, Goldman Sachs, HSBC, JP Morgan. So there is the name, right? These are the 12 members you can check out. So these are the mostly Western or Japanese private bank. So the common exam trap is that, big bank means Volkswagen member. No. SBI follow the Volkswagen principle, but following a standard is not being a member. So remember, Volkswagen group, private body are member. And what about FATF, Financial Action Task Force? So FATF, this is the inter-government body. So countries are the member. The difference is frequently tested in the examination. Mostly US, UK, European or Japanese bank are there. Now friends, have a look at the next question. The question is, a medium risk retail customer opened an account and completed their KYC on 1st January 2018. Okay, fine. According to the standard RBI periodic updation cycle, by which year must the bank perform the next mandatory full KYC refresh for this customer? So friends, the medium retail customer opened the account, completed full KYC on 1st January 2018. Right. So to solve this question, we only need two things. First of all, what is the risk category of the customer? Second thing is RBI KYC updation cycle. Right. So we need to know these two things. So you know it very well that RBI classify the customer into three risk category. So RBI classify the customer into three risk category. Fine. So what are the risk category? First is called high risk. High risk means KYC updation is done every 2 years. Then we have the medium risk. Medium risk means every 8 years. And then we have the low risk. Low risk KYC updation is done every 10 years. Now in this particular case, as you can see, they have clearly mentioned that this is a medium risk, right? So medium risk, 8-year cycle. Now last KYC done on 2018. So medium risk cycle is 8 years. So 2018 plus 8 years, which is 2026. So therefore the next mandatory full KYC refresh is due in 2026. So if you look at the 2020, so this apply only to, this high risk customer. If it is high risk, then every 2 years. What about C? 2028, this is 10 years. This is also low risk for customer. And 2030 is no RBI category. So now, does the full KYC always mean fresh document? Please tell me. Suppose, okay, it is clear that, full KYC has to be done. That is after 2 year, 8 year or 10 year. But what does it mean of full KYC? So we have more question available. If you want to get explanation for all this question, you can enroll in our course. In our course, we provide you complete explanation for all this question. WhatsApp me on this particular number or check out the link in the description section of the video. You can just install the app. Thank you.